And welcome to Local Talk here on Nextdoor Radio, nextdoorradio.com, and by way of the Nextdoor Radio app available by the Google and Apple Store. Great show lined up for today. This is part of our Decision 2022. Earhart, who is a candidate for Congress in North Carolina's 3rd Congressional District. Good afternoon, sir. How are you today?
I'm a blessed man. How are you doing today, brother?
I am fantastic. I appreciate you for kind of joining us here for our Local Talk program in our Decision 2022. So let's kind of dive right in. Tell us, our listeners, our audience, your story, where you're from, family life, education, that kind of aspect of it, and then we'll dive deep into anything else.
Gotcha. A little get to know you. Let's do it. Okay. So I am on my father's side, 3rd generation commercial waterman. On my mom's side, 4th generation. So grew up on the coast all my life. From my family up and down the coast, commercial fishermen. If you know the commercial fishing industry, from Cape May, New Jersey to New Bedford, Massachusetts, Long Island, New York, we'll say the Chesapeake Bay, Phoebus, Virginia, and Wanchese, North Carolina. So in the scallop industry, in the scallop world, those are the communities. So my family was always connected with those communities up and down the coast. I was born in Dixie General Hospital in 1967 in Hampton, Virginia, there in a little fishing village called Phoebus. My dad worked on a boat in Wanchese, and so we lived back and forth there growing up. And that was the life, and it was a beautiful life. It was blue collar, it was rough and tumble. I was raised in a home that was not Christian, and so hard drinking, hard fighting, hard language was a regular part of my life. And it was later in life that I came to faith in Christ, had a road to Damascus experience. And since then, I had the opportunity to lead my father to Christ when he was 64 years of age.
Oh, wow. Just
before he passed away in my arms. 6 months later, I've had the opportunity to lead my brother to Christ, my sister. So it's been an exciting journey. So my upbringing was blue collar, working class, rough and tumble. I wrote a book about it. I literally wrote a book about it. There's a book called Emancipation Proclamation. Your listeners can find it at ep2020.com. And I go into more detail that I don't really want to go into here. So we'll hit the highlights here, but some tough stories there, no doubt. And if you know anything about being raised in a dysfunctional home with drugs and alcohol, violence, sex, and it's tough. And but it's real, and it's real life. And so I was raised in that world, and when you're a kid and you're growing up, that's all you only know what your parents have given you. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I knew, and that's what I did. And I lived in that world, and I tried to excel in that world. So I was going to be the toughest fighting, hardest drinking guy that you could find. And let me just tell you, that doesn't work out in life. Kids don't try this at home, right? Yeah. So that didn't work out. And at 29 years of age, I had been running my own seafood business. I decided, I cut my thumb off. I was building boats. I don't know if you ever heard of Buddy Davis Boats, but it's a famous boat company there in Wanchese. I was working for Buddy Davis, and I ended up cutting my thumb off, and got a little money for that. So I told my brother, I said, look, man, I said, let's buy our own refrigerated fish trucks. And instead of catching fish and selling to other people, let's go ahead and let's do our own business. So we cut out the middleman. We bought us some fish trucks, opened a Hooker Seafood Company, and we're servicing 28 restaurants up and down the coast. Having a good time running a 38-foot Buddy Davis out of Thicket Lump Marina there, and enjoying ourselves, just on top of the world. And my drug life got caught up with me. I got caught with some cocaine, got convicted of a felony. And but that was the turning point. I needed that. And while I was waiting trial and I needed some work, I went to work on a boat called the Redeemed. And I'm actually getting ready to release a campaign commercial that has this boat in it. I went to Wanchese and found that boat 25 years later. Wow. It's still sitting there tied up. It's in rough shape. But I went to work on a boat called the Redeemed. And me and another boy named Dustin Daniels, precious brother, he now runs Dare Challenge program in Dare County, North Carolina, there in Wanchese. North Carolina's premier drug and alcohol rehabilitation program. So if you have family members, I just want to stop and plug this if you don't mind. If you have family members out there struggling with drugs and alcohol, I know what that's like. Dustin's know what that's like. Google Dare Challenge and look up Brother Dustin, because he wants to help you and your family have hope for the future. Anyway, so Dustin and I, he was an alcoholic. I was a drug addict. We find ourselves on this boat. His life's ruined. My life's ruined. And lo and behold, we're out there on the Pamlico Sound shrimping. And there's a Bible laying up in the wheelhouse of the boat. And we're in the middle of the night. We had just got done on the last haul back. And he breaks that thing out and he says, "You ever read this before?" And I said, "No." I said, "You?" And he said, "No." I said, and we cracked that Bible open back in 1997. And 25 years later, my friend, God has been good to me, is all I can say.
Wow. Man, what a phenomenal story. Guest. Eric Earhart joins us here. He is a candidate for Congress in North Carolina's 3rd Congressional District. I love stories like that. I've always, in these interviews, I love when people open, when they're honest, and I can appreciate that very much, my friend. Now, you were a part of, you served our country as well, correct?
Yes, sir. I joined the Army in October 1985, never, a very undistinguished career. I was a knucklehead, as I've just pointed out, and I never rose above E4, but I served 5 years, 7 months, 19 Delta, a Cavalry Reconnaissance Scout, and an 11 Bravo infantryman. So all my infantry buddies out there, HUA, you know what I'm saying. So cross rifles. I carried an M60 machine gun. I'm dating myself now because the U.S. Army hasn't used this weapon in 30 years. I carried an M60 machine gun for 27 months as just a line grunt. So light infantryman, yeah, undistinguished, but I put on the uniform and I signed up. It was what my family believed in, and that's what we did.
Fantastic. And thank you for your service, my friend. I appreciate that very much. Now let's kind of go on. You were a part of the former pastor of Upper Room Assembly over in Gatesville, North Carolina. Tell me about your experience there.
Sure. Well, I'm the current pastor.
My apologies.
Yeah, of Upper Room Assembly. 21 years ago, just had a dream on my heart to build a church where black, white, young, old, rich, poor, didn't matter who you were, that you could find a place to worship the Lord together. And that's what we did. 6 of us launched in a gas station here in Gatesville 21 years ago. And God has done a miracle. I wish I could take that. I'm sitting in the sanctuary now. I wish I could take this camera and spin it around for you. But we have the largest church facility in the county. It's the only multiracial congregation in 300-year history of this town. And it's fabulous. It's truly is what we wanted, was a place where no matter where you're at in life, whether you've been a Christian all your life or you're sitting out in this parking lot smoking a joint, thinking about suicide, when you walk in these doors, you're going to be loved on as if you've been here forever. And that's the environment we wanted. And so, yeah, I've spent 22 years as a pastor, 21 of them here at this church, and just really leading in my community, serving. A pastor, a real pastor, you don't just pastor your church, you pastor your community. So I've served on multiple boards and led different outreaches and activities here in the community. And I don't want to drag on about that, but certainly it's been 2 decades of blessing here serving in this community.
Again, my apology, current pastor of Upper Room Assembly. Apologize for that. But now let's kind of get into your platform. Let's talk about why you're running for candidate for Congress in North Carolina's 3rd Congressional District. Sure,
thank you. Yeah. I'll preface it with this. Back in 2016, counties like Gates and others, the Republican Party maybe had 5 or 6 people coming to it. It was a non-existent entity. Now you come to a monthly meeting in a little town of 250 here, and you'll find 40, 50, 60 people showing up. So we are experiencing a revolution, a grassroots populist revolution in the Republican Party in America, thanks to President Trump. Now, whatever you think about him as a person, like we can debate that. We can talk about that specifically if you want, but I'll just say this. I believe that he was used to unleash a fresh wind and a populist revolution in the Republican Party. So for the first time in decades, the Republican Party began to represent the working class. And it's something the Republican Party hadn't done since Roosevelt, really. Reagan a little bit with the patriotism and the populism. But really, Theodore Roosevelt was the last time there was a real populist move in the Republican Party. And it was a move that really changed America. And so, and it gets back to the grassroots of the Republican Party, which is that Lincoln Douglas kind of a freedom, individual liberty, constitutionalism. That movement has surged, and everywhere I go, and I have now been, so on March 5th was my first speaking engagement after filing. So from March 5th till tonight, which is 25 days, I have spoken 23 times in 14 counties in this district. And I'm going to tell you, everywhere I go, the house is full, the people are excited. And if people don't think there's a tsunami coming in November, a red tsunami coming in November, they need to get out to these little Pamlico and Jones and Hyde and on and on and on, and get out here and see what's happening, because the American people, the working class, the average American is fired up and they want to take their country back.
There, Earhart joins us here. He's the candidate for Congress for North Carolina's 3rd Congressional District. So I see here that you're conservative, you're proud, you're upfront. What does that really mean to you?
I would say constitutional conservatives should always understand that our government was designed. So you take the 3 branches. You got Congress represents the people. Senate's supposed to represent the states. 17th Amendment changed that. I wish we could nullify that and do away with that 17th Amendment and get the Senate back to representing the states. And then, of course, the executive, the federal, represented by the president, right? And so this is a beautiful system of design, what I would say miraculous system of government design, that all the different players get an equal part of it. And that should create some gridlock, right? It should create some gridlock. Gridlock's not a bad thing in Washington, because gridlock means that we have not come to consensus on what's right for America and the American people. So I would say I'm an American first constitutionalist, and I'll give you an example. Maybe this will help resonate what I'm talking about. And differentiate it between what I would call a neocon, a neoconservative. Often Republicans are sold a bill of goods to go along with globalism, and it's fed to us, spoon-fed, as free markets. But I'm going to tell you right now, if the market is not free for me as an American, if a global corporation comes to America and controls our markets because they're buying the politicians, that's not a free market. So an American first free market is a genuine free market. And I think that's what we're seeing right now in a surge of new conservatism.
Fantastic. Again, candidate for Congress in North Carolina's 3rd Congressional District, Earhart joins us here on our Local Talk program, a part of our Decision 2022. Now, you have the opportunity to be elected. You get into Washington. Your first 90 days, what can your voters, what can the community expect from you?
Well, I sent an email to Jim Jordan the other day. He's on the Judiciary Committee. And I sent an email to his staff and said, look, if May 17th is good to me, because I'm in the R20 district, right? And so if May 17th is good to me, and the people of the 3rd district believe that I should represent the Republican Party in the November general, I sent an email to Jim Jordan and said, I want to be on the Judiciary Committee with you, because it's time that we investigate the investigators and we abolish the FISA court. I'm going to jump right on that. There's no way in an open society, a free society, that we should have secret federal courts. Because guess what happens when you have secret federal courts? They go after the political enemy. And in this case, it happened to be President Trump. So we're going to abolish the FISA. We have no need for it. We have a federal Department of Justice. We have federal courts, federal prosecutors. We don't need a secret one. And they say, well, it's because of terrorism. Well, you just go back and look at their record for catching terrorists, and you'll understand that they do spend more time going after Americans than they do terrorists. So in the first 90 days, I would want to be seated on the Judiciary Committee, which is going to be now chaired by Jim Jordan, because the Republicans are going to take over. And I would begin to investigate the investigators and make the FBI be held accountable for what they did to go and try to undermine and unseat illegally the President of the United States.
Fantastic. Mr. Earhart George is here, candidate for Congress in North Carolina's 3rd Congressional District. We'd like to kind of finish these Decision 2022 in our Local Talk program on Nextdoor. Really the last couple of minutes of opening up the floor, opening up the opportunity for you to share anything that you want. And again, the floor is yours, my friend, so take it away.
All right, well, thank you. Well, I would say this to your listeners, that after 20 years of pastoring, I'm just like you. I'm just a workaday American. an Eastern North Carolinian, and I'm sick and tired of sending people to Washington who tell me they're conservative, tell me what they're going to fight for, and they get there and they seem to drown in the swamp, and we never hear from them again. The state motto is Esse quam vadere. Now, that means in modern language, don't talk about it, be about it. It means rather than to seem, to be. So if you're like me, to all your listeners out there, and you're sick and tired of sending people to Washington and they disappear in the swamp, I can guarantee you this. If you pick me on May 17th in a Republican primary, I'm going to Washington and I'm not going to sink in that swamp. I'm going to walk on water.
Fantastic. Well, my friend, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun. We appreciate you very much for being open, being honest, and that's all we can ask for. So I appreciate you. God bless you. Okay.
God bless you. Thank you.
Again, this is Local Talk here on Nextdoor Radio, nextdoorradio.com. And this is the season 2022. We'll see you next time.